Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off our session with today's topic, understanding prose. On this first slide, we're just getting started, so I'll keep it brief. We'll explore what prose really is, why it matters, and how to appreciate it more deeply. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into key concepts and examples. So let's get started and enjoy the journey into the world of prose. Let's take a quick look at the contents of this presentation. We're going to explore various aspects of prose, starting with a basic question. What is prose? Then we'll look at the different types of prose, which include fiction and nonfiction. Moving forward, we'll delve into the key elements that make up prose fiction, such as character, setting, plot, and so on. We'll also discuss the different types of conflict that can arise in stories, as conflict is essential to creating engaging narratives. Then, we'll examine the various structures of plot, how stories are built and organized to keep readers interested. Next, we'll go deeper into the elements of a story or prose fiction, including the point of view, which shapes how the story is told, and the theme, which gives the story meaning and depth. Finally, we'll explore different kinds of plots and how their structures influence the overall storytelling. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how all these elements come together to create compelling prose fiction that captures the reader's imagination. Let's take a closer look at what prose actually is. Prose is essentially a straightforward way of communicating. It's how we naturally speak and write in everyday life. It flows in a natural, unforced manner, without the structured rhythm or meter you might find in poetry. When we say it's written or spoken in its ordinary form, that means it doesn't follow specific patterns like rhyme or meter. Instead, it mirrors how we typically express ourselves. Another key point is that prose is composed of full grammatical sentences, which come together to form paragraphs. These sentences are complete thoughts, clear and easy to understand, making prose accessible and familiar. Recognizing these features helps us appreciate that prose is really the foundation of most of our communication, whether we're telling a story, explaining an idea, or just having a conversation. Understanding prose is crucial because it ties into the broader theme of effective communication, showing us how language can be both simple and powerful when used in its natural form. Let's take a closer look at the different types of prose. First, we have the short story. This is a brief narrative that usually involves just a few characters and focuses on a single incident. It's a compact way to tell a complete story. Moving on, there's the biography, which is a detailed description or account of someone's life. It's often quite comprehensive and helps us understand a person's experiences and achievements. When we talk about a novel, we're referring to a longer work of fiction that develops characters and themes in much greater depth, allowing for more complex storytelling. It's important to note that these are often based on true stories, written either by the person themselves or someone permitted to tell their story, or stories inspired by real scenes. Then, we have the autobiography, which is a self-written account of the author's own life. It provides personal insights directly from the person who lived it. The diary is similar but more personal, a daily record of events and experiences. Moving to traditional stories, myths are stories that explain natural or social phenomena, often passed down through generations. History, of course, involves the study of past events, giving us a factual account of what happened before. The journal is a more formal and scholarly record, often used to reflect on events or ideas in a structured way. Folktales, which include legends, fables, and parables, are usually based on the author's imagination and creativity. They are not necessarily true stories, but serve to entertain and teach lessons. Lastly, letters are written messages from one person to another, which can be personal or formal. Understanding these different types helps us appreciate the variety and richness of prose as a form of expression and storytelling. Now let's take a look at the elements of a story or prose fiction. First, we have setting, which is essentially where and when the story takes place. It helps create the world in which the characters live and influences the mood of the story. Next, we have characters, the individuals who drive the story forward. They can be complex or simple, but they are always central to the narrative. Then, there's the plot, which is the sequence of events that make up the story. A well-structured plot keeps the reader engaged and provides a sense of progression. Moving on, we have point of view, or the perspective from which the story is told. Whether it's first person, third person, or even an omniscient narrator, point of view shapes how we experience the story. And finally, there's theme, the underlying message or main idea that the story explores. The theme ties everything together and gives the story depth and significance. These elements work together to create a compelling and meaningful story, and understanding them helps us better analyze and appreciate fiction. Let's talk about the elements of prose fiction, starting with the setting. The setting refers to the time period, the geographical locations, and the overall environment and circumstances that are present in a story. Think of it as the backdrop against which the story unfolds. It's not just about where or when, but also the mood and atmosphere that the environment creates. For example, a story set in a bustling city will evoke a different feeling than one set in a quiet countryside. The setting helps us to understand the context of the characters' lives and actions. It's a vital component because it establishes the mood and tone, guiding how we feel about the story as we read. Overall, the setting is essential in shaping the reader's experience and pulling us deeper into the narrative. Let's talk about the different types of setting we encounter in stories. First, there's the integral setting. This type of setting is fully described in terms of both time and place. It's often used in historical fiction, where the setting plays a crucial role in shaping the story and characters. The details paint a vivid picture of the world the characters inhabit, helping us understand the context in which the story unfolds. On the other hand, we have the backdrop setting. This is more vague and general. Instead of detailed descriptions, it provides a background that supports the story without overwhelming it. This kind of setting helps create a sense of universality and timelessness, making the story feel more like a universal tale that could happen anywhere or at any time. Both types of setting serve different purposes in storytelling. Integral settings ground us in a specific world, while backdrop settings allow for a more flexible, timeless feel. Understanding these differences helps us see how authors craft their stories to evoke certain moods or themes. Let's take a closer look at the structure of prose fiction. Think of this structure as the framework or the skeleton that supports the entire story. It's what holds everything together and guides the flow of the narrative. At the heart of this structure is the plot, which is really about establishing connections, how events relate to one another, suggesting causes and effects, and revealing relationships between characters and their actions. When you craft a story with a strong structure, it helps the reader see the bigger picture and makes the story more engaging and meaningful. This idea ties into the overall theme of storytelling, creating a coherent, interconnected world that draws the reader in and keeps them invested from start to finish. Now let's take a closer look at the parts of a plot. First, we have the introduction, also known as the exposition. This is where the story begins, and we meet the characters and the setting. It's the foundation that sets the stage for everything that follows. Next, we move into the rising action. This is where the main events and conflicts start to develop, creating tension and interest as the story progresses. It's the build-up that keeps us hooked. Then we reach the climax, which is the turning point of the story. This is the most intense or exciting moment, where the main conflict reaches its peak. Following the climax, we have the falling action. This part shows the events that happen after the climax as the story moves toward resolution. It's where the loose ends start to get tied up. Finally, we arrive at the resolution, or the conclusion. This is where conflicts are resolved and the story wraps up. It provides a sense of closure and answers the questions we've been asking throughout. And it's important to remember that complications often arise when the characters try to resolve conflicts. These twists and turns make the story more engaging and realistic. Connecting all these parts helps us understand how stories are structured, making it easier for us to analyze or even craft our own compelling narratives. Now, let's explore the different types of conflict that characters face in stories. First, there's the struggle against nature, things like animals, weather, or the environment. These conflicts often test a character's resilience and resourcefulness. Then, we have internal conflicts, those battles within oneself, such as dealing with personal limitations, difficult choices, or even struggles with one's own soul. These are often the most emotionally intense because they reveal a character's inner world. Next, there's conflict between characters, clashes and disagreements that drive the story forward and create tension. Finally, we have conflicts involving ideas, practices, or customs of others, which can lead to misunderstandings or deeper cultural clashes. All of these conflict types are essential because they reflect the multifaceted challenges humans face, whether external or internal. Understanding these helps us see how stories mirror real life, emphasizing the universal nature of struggle and growth. Let's take a closer look at some common kinds of plot that help shape stories. First, we have the man in a whole story. In this type, the story usually starts with a character or a group of characters facing a problem or trapped in a difficult situation. The narrative then follows their journey as they work to overcome or escape from this predicament. It's a compelling way to build tension and show growth through adversity. Next is the man in a tub story. This one focuses on a single character going through different stages of life or personal development. It's about their journey, encountering various adventures, challenges, and moments of growth. It's a very introspective and often emotional type of story, emphasizing personal evolution over time. Lastly, we have the man on a road story. Here, the plot involves an unstructured, everyday event or journey. The story typically unfolds with ordinary experiences, but what makes it interesting is the insight or realization that the character gains along the way. It's about those small, relatable moments that lead to a deeper understanding or change. Connecting these to our overall theme, understanding these different plot types helps us craft stories that resonate with audiences, whether by creating tension, exploring personal growth, or revealing insights through simple, relatable journeys. Let's take a closer look at the structures of plot. First up is the progressive plot, which follows a clear, chronological order. It starts by establishing the setting and the main conflict, then builds up through rising actions until reaching the climax. After that, it wraps up with the denouement or resolution. This structure helps the audience follow the story in a natural, logical flow. Next, we have the flashback structure. This one is a bit more flexible. It allows us to jump back in time to reveal events that happened earlier. These flashbacks can occur multiple times throughout the story, giving us deeper insight into characters and backstories, enriching the overall narrative. Finally, there's the episodic plot. This structure consists of loosely connected incidents, each one like a small story within the bigger story. The episodes are tied together by common themes or characters, making the plot feel more like a series of related events rather than a single continuous flow. All these structures serve different storytelling purposes and can be used to connect with audiences in various ways. Understanding how they work helps us craft more engaging and effective stories, aligning perfectly with our overall goal of mastering storytelling techniques. Let's dive into slide 13, which is about the elements of prose fiction. When we talk about a person in a fictional story, we often focus on certain qualities that define who they are. These qualities help us understand the character better and make the story more engaging. For example, a character's personality, their motivations, and their background all come into play here. Understanding these qualities is essential because they drive the plot and influence how the story unfolds. A well-developed character with unique traits can evoke empathy or curiosity from the reader, making the story more compelling. Remember, these qualities are not just random traits. They connect deeply to the overall theme of the story. They help convey the message or moral the author wants to communicate. So, in essence, the elements of a person's character are fundamental building blocks that bring fiction to life, making the characters relatable and memorable. Now, let's take a closer look at the different types of characters, starting with the protagonist, who is typically the main character or hero of the story. When we talk about character portrayal, you'll often hear about flat versus round characters. Flat characters tend to have no real depth or development. They stay the same from start to finish. On the other hand, round characters are fully developed with complex personalities, and they often change and grow throughout the story. This contrast helps us understand how authors create relatable or dynamic characters for their narratives. Next, we have the antagonist. This is usually the character who opposes the protagonist, creating conflict and driving the story forward. The antagonist can be a villain, but not always. It could also be a force, a situation, or even an internal struggle within the protagonist. And then there are foil characters. These are characters who contrast with the main character in significant ways. Their purpose is to highlight particular qualities of the protagonist by providing a clear comparison. Foil characters help deepen our understanding of the main characters and enrich the story. Overall, understanding these character types is essential because they shape the story's development and help us connect with the narrative on a deeper level. Now, let's explore the element of point of view in prose fiction. This is essentially the angle from which the story is told. It shapes how readers experience the narrative and connect with the characters. The point of view can be first person, where the story is told through a character's eyes, using I or we. Or it can be third person, which is more detached, using he, she, or they. Within third person, there are variations like omniscient, where the narrator knows everything about all characters, and limited, where the narrator focuses on just one character's perspective. Understanding the point of view is crucial because it influences the tone, the level of intimacy, and even how much information the reader receives. When you analyze a story, paying attention to the point of view helps you grasp the author's intent and the overall storytelling approach. So, always consider from whose perspective the story is being told and how that shapes your reading experience. Now, let's explore the different variations of point of view, or POV, that we can use in storytelling. First, there's the first-person perspective, where the story is told by the protagonist or someone close to them. This uses pronouns like I or we, making the story feel personal and immediate. It's a great way to share authentic feelings and experiences directly from the narrator's perspective. Next, we have the second-person perspective, which is less common but very engaging. Here, the narrator talks directly to the reader, using you. This approach makes the audience feel like they're part of the story, creating a direct connection and involvement. Finally, there are the third-person perspectives. The limited version focuses the story through the eyes of a single character, giving us insight into their thoughts and feelings while keeping some narrative distance. On the other hand, the omniscient point of view allows the narrator to know everything, what all characters think and feel, offering a broader, more comprehensive view of the story. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these POV variations helps us choose the most effective storytelling approach based on what we want to communicate and how we want the audience to connect with the story. I'm a sucker for books, and one of my favorites is written by Stephen Gerrard, titled My Story. This book was actually recommended to me by a friend I met while I was staying outside the country. During that time, I felt like I had lost myself, struggling to identify what I truly enjoyed doing and what I didn't want to put effort into. That's when I picked up this book. It's about his life and how he managed to overcome challenges he once thought were impossible. Reading it gave me a lot of realizations, and there's one line that I live by even today, constantly reminding me how to live a life of example. Now, moving on to the concept of the elements of prose fiction, especially the theme. The theme is essentially the main underlying idea of a piece of literature. It's often the moral lesson or the key message that the author wants us, the readers, to understand. A very powerful quote from Gerrard's book is, "None of us really changes over time. We only become more fully what we are." And I think that really ties into the idea that, at our core, our true selves are always there. Life might shape us, experiences might refine us, but the essence remains. So, in the context of our overall presentation, understanding the theme helps us see beyond the surface. It's about grasping the deeper meaning or the message that the author wants to communicate through their story. And that's what makes literature so impactful. It's not just about the story itself, but what it teaches us about ourselves and the world around us.